Alright, welcome everybody, and this is a special video because I decided to jump into BattleTech, at least as a noob, to look into the lore, look into, purchasing some of the products, get painting, learn some of the rules, and all this wonderful jazz. And I just needed to talk about my first experience dipping my toes into the BattleTech community and fandom. Now, let me explain something. This is on the heels of being a 40k fan. My army was Necrons. Love my Crons, but Games Workshop is being a little dickish, and they turned my Necrons into something horribly abysmal. They should not have ever been Tomb Kings 2.0 metallic no, they should have been Lovecraftian creatures who don't give a shit about your fucking feelings. So, fast forwarding that, of course, this is on the heels of Arch, formerly known as Arch Warhammer, getting into the BattleTech scene, courtesy of Captain Kibbs, Breed Kibbs, as always, and also that culminating into Arch and Razorfist having a little powwow session in which Arch relays his musings and growing philosophy into gatekeeping, which is successfully culminated into attracting Razorfist, who, without, I don't think, even knowing what was going on, discovering that BattleTech is now on the horizon of being invaded by social justice bullshit. And on the tails of BattleTech being soon to be invaded by social justice bullshit, Razorfist unironically just said, fuck you, I am liberally applying all the things that Arch has been talking about without having talked with him previously about it. And he did so in typical Razorfist fashion, and it was beautiful. This, of course, leads me down to my own journey, in which I discovered the talk that Arch had with Tex of the Black Pants Legion, and that was my first introduction to BattleTech, was the Black Pants Legion YouTube channel and his two-part series on the history of the Clanners. And I, honest to God, fell in love with the Clanner lore. Even though they are reviled for being Clanner scum, because they invaded the Inner Sphere and, just came and broke shit up. But the meritocratic nature of the Clanners is something that I find highly appealing. So, jumping into BattleTech, I decided to actually investigate what BattleTech had to offer. Let me show you, because this is really, really cool about BattleTech. What is awesome about BattleTech is, as it says here, you get to choose your experience. There are 5 ways of enjoying it. You can do the tabletop minigame, you have a board game, you have the RPG, you have the books, and you have the numerous video games for big stompy robots for you to enjoy. And the best part about all of this is the free PDFs. Completely free of charge. You can get most of the rules, most of the character sheets, most of the data sheets for your mechs. All of this is free of charge, ready to go. No muss, no fuss. And of course, we have all of it here. The minis game, the tabletop, the board game, the RPG. It's free. Literally. Like, not even, it's no contest. Like, all of it for you to jump in here is free to jump into. And so I decided to, why not just jump in? And so I did. And let me explain something. As I was reading the minis tabletop game, because that's where I wanted to start. There are some things about playing that game that there are a lot of factors, and they have been extremely thorough in simulating big stompy robots firing and trying to kill each other. And basically, if I'm going to sum it up, the basic rules are you have a target number, and that number is generated by adding your skills plus factors. So you might have a skill set of 3 or 4, and you'll have factors that can increase your target number all the way up to however high the difficulty gets. And here's the rule for the target number. You have to roll, I think it is under that number. So whatever your target number is, you have to roll under it, and you're rolling 2d6. All right. So you're rolling 2d6, and what you learn as you're reading these rules is, now mind you, I'm still a noob. I'm still very new to this, trying to get a few games under my belt. So this is extremely, extremely simplified and probably wrong in some scenarios. But basically, you get this target number, you try to roll under it, and there are ways for you to, and there are just certain things that you don't want, like, for example, if you moved on your turn, and your opponent moved during their movement phase, both of those movements count against you and add to your target number when making an attack. Yeah, we're literally talking that intense. So, just because I'm a min-maxing son of a bitch, I decided that I wanted a character, or a mech, who makes it as difficult as possible for him to get hit by his opponents by ordnance and artillery and anything that has to aim. So, with that in mind, I also, throughout the rulebook, learned that firing long-range weaponry generates something in your mech called heat. And there are 4 levels of heat that you can get up to if your heat sinks aren't enough to cover the heat that you've used that turn. Also, movement in certain scenarios can also cause heat. So, also keep that in mind. So, you have movement causing heat, you have firing weapons causing heat, and so I'm thinking, and if you exceed heat to a certain level, it shuts down your mech. So you're just a sitting duck overheating, waiting to be killed on the battlefield because your mech is overheated. It's shut down, and you have to wait a turn to, get it back online after releasing the heat from the mech. So I'm thinking to myself, well, I want to be hard to hit. I want to make sure that I'm making it as difficult for my opponent to reach their target numbers. So, meanwhile, what I don't want to do is constantly having to roll target numbers that are harder for me to reach. So, I decided in my newbie innocence to decide to try and build a melee mech. And I'm already, as I'm reading the rule book, thinking what I don't want to deal with and what I think is going to be easier to accomplish on the battlefield for a newbie, because, looking at some of the way these calculations are coming out, I just didn't want to get most of it wrong. So I'm going to deal with mechanics that I'm able to easily digest and just jump in the game, which most players are going to want to do. They're going to want to make things at least easier for themselves, as opposed to, you know, changing the rules like most SJWs would do. So rather than having to deal with things, I'm just going to make it simpler for myself. With that in mind, I decide, okay, I like the lore, I like the clanners, and I want to make a melee unit. So I did something extremely intelligent. I made my first BattleTech post on the BattleTech Reddit. And it reads, I is noob. I am very new to BattleTech and just finished a few tutorials on the tabletop gameplay, and I would like some recommendations. What's a good, fast, jumping required, melee fitted mech I can use as a base? And yes, I do like clans, how can you tell? Now, I in retrospect, this was not perhaps the best thing to say, as we go to the first comment. Dinner Dad 4040, you are not a clanner, free birth scum. True-born warrior such as I know melee is desgra. Which, by the way, means shameful or disgraced in clanner lingo, because this is how deep we got. Now, by the way, 10 for 10 for gatekeeping right here. This is the real shit that we should all be applauding, alright? This is how things should be. To which I responded, of course, because I'm not a little bitch, I will not repent of my ways. Which earned some street cred. And the rest of this thread, ladies and gentlemen, was nothing but beautiful. Nothing but good recommendations on things that I might be looking for. We had some internal strife in terms of what mechs can do what. In terms of what is and isn't. Now, obviously, as you might be reading along with me, clan mechs don't do melee. Or at least most of them don't. So, I kind of stepped in it here. But, good on the community for catching that and enforcing that culture vigorously, and I do appreciate it. So, we eventually get to a point here where they talk about the Jade Hawk, and where is it that I'm, here it is, Tech Monkey. Thank you, no, Mech Monkey. He finally gave me a build that was something that I was actually looking for, the T-Sang, which is not a clanner, faction. It's actually the Inner Sphere faction, and they are one of the most hated groups in the Inner Sphere, the Capellans. So he recommended the T-Sang. And ladies and gents, that was the ticket. That was absolutely the way to go. And I'm going to actually show you what I came up with. In just a second. Now, this is the mech that they sent my way. It's called the T-Sang. Look at that pretty little bot there. Now, it has the melee capacity. And it even has the jets. However, and it has all of the heat sinks and all that stuff. However, it did not have, how do we say this? I don't think it had the jets even. So this was my starter. This is what I had to work with. Now, the great thing with BattleTech is you can make your own mech. And you can, with this app called Mech Factory, which is fantastic. Now, by the way, as a noob, if there are any other noobs watching this, I don't understand half of this bullshit right here. I literally don't understand anything other than weapon and what else do I understand here? I understand the tech era. I understand yeah, most of this stuff you are not going to understand, but there is a chart here where it shows you what piece goes where, whether it goes in the head, left torso, left arm, right arm, so on and so forth. So you do have visual assistance in figuring out what it is exactly you're making as you're trying to get into this and build your mech. Now, I for myself have made a mech, and this is what I decided to come up with. I called it the Shinobi because it's an Inner Sphere era bioped, and this was something that I made based on the T-Sang. That is not an accurate representation, so we're going to go over the details. It has a walk of 6, a running of 9. It has a standard jump pack, but it jumps 6 movement spaces, which is the most you can get for. It has the typical 10 heat sinks. And instead of all those lasers that it usually has attached to it, it has in its right arm a large vibro blade, which is a close melee attack weapon. And on the other hand, it has a large shield with a medium laser attached to it. So what this mech does, or what it's supposed to do, is it decides, okay, I'm going to try and get on the high ground, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump from above and smash you to bits as fast as I can, or if you catch me in an open field, I'm going to move as fast as I can, end my turn, and plant myself behind my shield until I can get close enough to hack and slash you. Now, I don't know if that's exactly how things are usually going to play out, but it's a nice idea. Here's the thing, though. Now, as I said, I is noob, and I guarantee that this mech that I've made is a shitty little mech. The T-Sang that I inspired it from is probably a better mech with more firepower and more ability to win battles than what I have made here, this little fast assassin bot with this massive shield, and fuck-off shield, and a large vibro blade. That might not be a winning strategy in BattleTech, but it's my shitty mech, and I like my little shitty mech. Now, here's the problem. And this is the point where if you're gatekeeping and you want to keep your community good and pure, this is the part that should make your asshole clench. And I understand I'm out of line here. I understand I'm out of line. I understand that that I might be stepping a little too far. However, I am new. And this is from a fresh-eyed perspective as someone sincerely trying to get into this hobby. Y'all, I can't find any mechs. I can't find any minis to paint or represent this mech that I made. And the closest thing I have to this mech being made doesn't represent what I've created in the least. That being this picture right here. Look. My mech is not carrying a fuck-off axe. He's carrying a shield, and a big fucking vibro sword in the other arm, but he has all of the armor of this mech. He has the aesthetic of this mech. So I has a recommendation. Just one tiny little recommendation for someone who's just jumping into the hobby at all. And here's the recommendation. Alright guys, this is the recommendation. It's called Heroforge.com. Now, based on the app that I was just on called Mech Factory, I know for a fact that you wonderful group of autists have all of the specs, all of the information, and all of the various wonderful combinations and miniature aesthetic bullshit already on file. I kid you not, as someone who's new to the hobby, if I could have taken all the information in that Mech Factory app and just plugged it into something like Heroforge for BattleTech, I would have bought my mech yesterday. It's close enough to my birthday. I would have bought the bitch yesterday. I would have bought a few of them because the battle point value is respectably low for that unit that I made. And as I said before, it's a shitty mech, but it's my shitty mech. It's a mech that I made that I wanted to test out, possibly start a role play with, take it to the battle top, make it the best. But here we have Heroforge, which is a miniature app service that you can make pretty much any character with any gear, with any race. Like, seriously, it gets ridiculous with the races. And this is where you would put, like, the basic mech formats, the really root basic builds of mech that we could ever have. You would just slap them right in here in the species section, and the rest of it, like the gear, the stage, the pose. If we had a printer service like Heroforge for BattleTech, holy fuck, that would be epic. That would be amazing. And, like, seriously, I would have bought all of my mechs seriously yesterday. But the main reason, the real reason I wanted to make this video is because of this. Because of this post. Because in addition to anything that I could have said or will say later, the best thing about jumping into BattleTech was this starter feed, this the wonderful helpfulness and the trolling and the gatekeeping that was thoroughly and wonderfully demonstrated by the BattleTech community. Y'all are on top of it. So the BattleTech fandom, highly recommended. I love the lore. I love getting into it. They have everything ready for you to start creating your mech, start getting it down as to what you want and how you want to build it. As I said before, the hardest thing is finding your own miniatures to actually build and paint and have them represented on the tabletop. And as I said, I might be out of line here because there is a culture in BattleTech where, unlike Warhammer 40k and unlike Warhammer Fantasy, they have a very tight, anal culture around their miniatures. What you see is what you get, and that's pretty much it. You have to buy the miniature, you have to buy all the little add-ons, and you have to make sure that it's all kosher and it's all perfect and it's all pristine, and that's just the culture that GW, because of their copyright assholery is just into. If you read the BattleTech rules for the tabletop, they, in their rules, do not give a damn. I shit you not. They don't care. Like, they literally say you can have a 2-dimensional pop-up stand to represent the mech that you have this data sheet for. That's in their rules. That is codified, and not just in the rule set and in the culture of playing BattleTech. All I'm saying is, as someone who's getting into the hobby, who is looking into the lore and trying to adapt into this fandom, I would love to actually hold the mech that I made on Mech Factory in my hands, and to be able to paint it and make it my own. But maybe that's just me. As always, I hope that this finds everyone well, and this was my first foray into the BattleTech fandom, and it has so far been a blast, and it was a pleasure to share all of this with you. Everyone, well done. Well done gatekeeping, well done letting newbies into the hobby. This was the top tier experience in terms of getting all that done. And as always, stay carnal and God bless.